we got to get this straight out the gate. This is not an audit. This is not an inspection. Now, for the most of you who are watching this, that's probably not the first thing in your head, but there are many who have a role in an organization or a church to provide accountability. And so it can be very easy to slip into this phase of, I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure that everything that they say they're doing is what they're doing. Can I just tell you, the missionary care trip is not the time or place for that. There is a time and a place for those kinds of conversations. Accountability is really important. It's biblical. We need to have that in place. But when we're saying we're coming to care, don't bait and switch. It's not the time to actually come in and make people feel as if their life is now in an even worse fishbowl than it already was. They're not going to feel cared for at the end of that trip. So we need to take a step back and recognize that we are going to let our questions be crafted very carefully so that they don't even sound as if we're saying, we're here to make sure that everything you say you're doing, that you're really doing. One of the key values that God has shown us, it's actually one of our core values at GoSendMeGlobal, is that we're not results-driven, we're obedience-driven. You really can't, on a trip, go and measure whether or not they're being fully obedient, can you? And even if we were results-driven, you're stepping into the field in a time and a place that can't properly evaluate whether or not the right results are happening at the right time, etc. We don't have a yardstick to be able to determine in this side of heaven whether or not results are right, whether or not the fruit is all that we hope the fruit will be. Jesus will tell us those things when we meet him face to face. No, instead, this is a time for coming alongside and saying, what is it that we can do to ensure that you're staying healthy in the process of seeking to obey him fully? How do we help you not give up? How do we help you continue in the path forward by faith of obedience, faithful, loving obedience? Remember, Jesus said, there's going to come a point where you're going to stand before him and he's going to say, well done, good and what? Faithful servant. And we need encouragement from the body of Christ to do just that. Even when we are faithless, he remains faithful. There's times and places where we just, we're so close to giving out, giving up, and giving in. And you know what? That's not going to be in a newsletter from a missionary. You're not going to hear a missionary just come right out and tell supporters, yeah, I'm pretty much at the point where I'm ready just to quit all this because it's really, really hard. And there's a lot of rejection, a lot of difficulty. Because I deal with tragedy all the time and I'm going through secondhand trauma, there are just things that 99% of missionaries are really afraid to put into any kind of newsletter, any kind of update, or stand on a stage before a church when they're back in the States to share and say to everybody. But it's amazing how many of these things get said when we step on the other side of the curtain, come alongside, walk with them, demonstrate we're really there to care, not to inspect or to audit. And the result is some of those walls come down, some trust gets built, and some of the real ministry begins. So set it in your heart and your mind right now. We're not going to ask those questions that say things like, so how many people have you saved since you've been here? Now, yeah, I said it that way on purpose. You know why? Because that's exactly how the question was said to me. And others have experienced questions like that as well. When we're looking for the change that's being made, we're a results-driven culture. It's kind of like this Model T Ford process where we're assembly lining the gospel, assembly lining the kingdom, and we're expecting certain outcomes. But ministry is messy. Ask anybody who's really serving the Lord in any ministry capacity, and they'll tell you that so much of what they thought would be happening by now just ain't. And that's hard. So you know what? What comes with that hard? Discouragement, frustration. So get it in your head now that you're going to know that's probably already there before you get there. And you're going to come alongside that. You're going to be like that paraclete. And you're going to come alongside and minister. You're going to be that Barnabas buddy who's going to help to build up, not tear down, to carry a burden with for a while. You can't carry the whole load of what they're experiencing, but you can make it lighter for a little bit. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but ultimately the goal is not that you carry it either, or that they carry it. But if anyone is weary, heavy laden, they go to Christ. They take his yoke. They learn from him. That's where the strength comes from to continue to do the work that we're called to do. And you've got to make sure that it's already in your heart to help them to see that, to see where Jesus would help them through you, to see him in the midst, to stick with him and to let him carry the load. That's not going to happen if you come with your checklist of things to make sure that they're still doing or doing the right way. You have to be really careful in terms of what that right way is. Churches, denominations, etc., have often been prone to show up on the field with a bent toward their traditions, toward their denominational structures, etc. And it's amazing how many of those things work in a particular place, particular setting here in the United States, where we're so used to that, where our Bible belt is buckled, if you will. But you get to the mission field, now you've stepped into a completely different culture, and things that you just knew would work because they worked in another place now don't work here. And now you have the challenge ahead of you. Well, then how does the kingdom get revealed here? And you actually start asking better questions. We here in the United States, in your culture, in your context, denominational background, bent, traditions, etc., haven't been forced into some of those questions that way, because you stepped into something that perhaps was already working. Maybe it was a system that's already been in place. They've had to step into something new and ask the Lord for direction. So you have to honor the process that the Lord has taken them through as you seek to come alongside them in care and just chunk the list.